live?
We are live. Good morning, Mont Blanc. Nice to see everybody here. It is now Friday, September 1st. It's officially UTMB day. CCC has just started. I have the live stream going on my computer on mute, so we'll be talking about that throughout today's broadcast. Good morning to each and every one of you. EmKay Sullivan, Dani Moreno, Francesco Puppi, 3 OCC runners from yesterday. So we're going to do a deep dive on the various race reports, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We have triumph and defeat on the panel here today, and that is the nature of life, and that's the nature of sport, isn't it? So really excited to chat with each of you and really appreciate you coming in. We'll talk about CCC as it evolves throughout the broadcast this morning, and we'll look ahead to the big race tonight, UTMB. Yeah. Maybe quickly first, just say a quick hello. EmKay.
Hi, Freetrail. Yeah. How you doing?
How are you feeling this morning? You get any sleep last night?
I slept a lot last night. I'm exhausted from my 20-mile hike that I did out there. And yeah, but I'm feeling better today.
Yeah. Now you get to do an ultra marathon of podcasting. So
that's okay. I love to talk. So
Dani, how'd you sleep last night?
Slept pretty good. I also got out a little late. There's a place called Poca Loco, and it was popping last night and took a very long time to get burgers and fries.
I know that place. It's always busy.
Yeah. But yeah, it also was just fun. We had a lot of team success yesterday. So, we celebrated who we could and prepped those who are going off to battle today and tomorrow.
Great. Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Today.
Francesco, good morning.
Good morning.
A resident podium finisher from yesterday.
You.
Yeah. Feeling very wrecked, to be honest. Yeah. Didn't get a whole lot of sleep, but I was expecting it. But it was totally worth.
Yeah, it was a battle all the way to the finish line. I can't wait to
all the way.
Hear all about it. We'll get to that in just a second. Before we do so, I was also out late last night, thanks to our great sponsors, Hoka. So we were at the Hoka party last night. And of course, need to start our broadcast today, thanking those who are making our coverage possible here at UTMB this year. Of course, Hoka and Camelback have been our partners throughout race week. Hoka, of course, the great premier sponsor of the UTMB World Series and of UTMB Mont Blanc. Big thank you to Hoka for their support and for the raucous rip, rage, and party last night. Ryan and I both woke up a little bit banged up, but it's UTMB day. You play injured sometimes, as they say. Camelback also. We had a Camelback event last night too.
Best day of the year.
Yeah. So big thanks to Camelback also. So yeah, thanks to the sponsors who are making this possible. So, all right, let's get brief race reports from each of you here. Maybe EmKay, we can start with you. You said it was a 20-mile hike yesterday. What were your expectations coming in, and how did things play out? At what point did you realize it wasn't going to be a special day?
Yeah, I came into this race really wanting to be on the podium. I felt fit enough to do that. I felt confident enough to do it. Even the morning of the race, I felt pretty good, was warming up fine. I got out really well. I actually went out maybe a little too hard in the first mile, but brought it back pretty quickly when I realized that we were in sight of the front men, very in sight of them. And so I backed off a little bit and was maybe in 5th or 6th place for a while. But by the time I got to Champs-Lac, things were not feeling great. But I just kind of kept telling myself, this kind of happened to me at Worlds, where I didn't get out in a position that I wanted to, and I felt kind of maybe flat. But as the race went on, I started to warm up, and then I passed a ton of people at the end. And so I just kept telling myself, just keep eating, just keep moving. We'll get through this. The second half will be better. You've seen the second half of the race. And it was every mile just got worse and worse and worse. And then I think at Triant, we had only gained maybe 4,000 or 5,000 feet of the almost 11.5 for the day. And I was yeah, I physically can't do this again. Yeah. And so I was hiking up to Col de Baume, again, still just trying to be maybe I can salvage this. As women are just rolling past me, is everything okay? And I'm I'm fine. It's a great job, or whatever. And I actually eventually texted my coach like halfway up, and I was just like, so at what point is it reasonable to just like stop instead of finish? And he was awake, watching, of course. And he was like, well, if you're just going to like jog in and you're not going to race, like maybe don't do it. And I was like, great. I'm actually walking. So I'm going to stop.
We're texting right now. So,
yeah. As I'm like crying, but it was definitely a journey out there. Like by the time I got to Trient, I was already in tears because so many people were like cheering for me and saying my name. And I was like, I can barely run on this flat portion of road.
Yeah.
And so then by the time I got to Col de Baume, and I knew I was going to stop like probably a mile out. So I was just walking in and I saw this guy that I had met on the bus here from Geneva. And he was just like, great job, EmKay, you're doing awesome. And I just started like bawling my eyes out. And he was like, oh my God, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, he like walked me up to the aid station, and it's just like such a weird feeling to get to an aid station and be like done. And the medical team is like, what do you need? And I'm like, I don't know, I guess just to stop, like nothing's broken. I just like can't move. And so unfortunate, but kind of fortunate at the same time. After I'd cried for a little bit, I turned around and saw Jen Lichter, and she had just dropped out like 5 minutes before me. Mm-hmm. And so we took the tram down together, cried, had a pity party, talked about how shitty we both felt about ourselves. And then it was like, it's okay. Everybody still loves us. Nobody is like upset with us. We're upset with us.
You guys are both coming off top 10s at Worlds.
I know. It was definitely not the day that I wanted, but I am like actually proud of myself for stopping, because I think if I hadn't texted my coach, I was very ready to just like walk the 12 miles to Chamonix. And I think that would have been a really poor decision. Yeah. So
sometimes it's a good decision. Sometimes it's a bad decision to hike it in. And
I still feel good about the decision that I made today. And I mean, I don't feel good about the race, but I'm glad I did it. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for coming in and chatting about it. Honestly, before we press record, you were saying that you had some Sub-Hub fans out there giving you good feedback on the podcast.
Yeah, that was the best part about feeling bad, maybe. It's like, as people were passing me, they were like, oh my gosh, huge fan of the podcast. And I'm like, you're doing great. Thank you.
Dani,
I just wanted to see you guys for the pod. Doing interviews out here.
So I did buy some mini mics, and I had joked about bringing them on the course so that we could like immediately at the finish line like interview somebody. I should have brought them just to interview people as they were passing me. Hey, great job. How's it going for you today?
Where are you from? Yeah. How many kids you got?
Awesome. Dani, let's move to you. Of course, you're podium finisher here last year. Katie Asmith was here with us in yesterday's show, and she said that she had heard from you that you weren't feeling great leading into race week. So tell us what was going on there. It seems like the unfortunate result was not unexpected.
Yeah. So there's kind of like a couple of things at play yesterday. One is I feel that I'm such a student of the sport that I know weird stuff always happens during UTMB week. Mm-hmm. There's like weird bugs and stuff. And so I felt that I like did all my due diligence, traveling, eating, drinking bottled water, just trying to eliminate everything. And then also coming in, like I had all the confidence in myself that I could win, or I could at least put myself in a position to win. This race has been my baby all year. I made my schedule around it. The training was all for OCC. When I pushed hard, I was thinking of different parts of the course. So, it meant a lot. And especially coming off the podium last year, I was like, well, how do we do better? We go for the win. If it's the same course, we go for the course record, and we just like see what I'm made of. Finally, focus on one race. I've always been focused on a billion races. Everything was going to plan, and I knew my period was coming this week, and I started to have some like weird stomach stuff on Sunday where I was like, oh, it's probably just like period cramps. Mm-hmm. And then it like started getting weirder and weirder. And before I knew it, I was just like on the toilet, like 24/7. And for 3 days, like nothing stayed in my system. And like, as it was happening, I was like, it's okay. Just like electrolytes and water. We'll mitigate this. And it just like nothing was sticking. And I just like, I know the science and stuff. And I was trying to put that out of my head. I'm like, just hold on to hope. It's okay. We'll figure it out. And it wasn't until literally like lunch the day before that I could finally eat.
Yeah.
And so I just tried to eat as much as I could, but I also know I didn't want to like overload my system again. So yeah, I just race morning, like put a smile on my face because my team had been so worried about me that I was like, I don't even want them thinking about me. Just, I'm fine. I'm good.
Yeah.
We're going to go. We're going to give this a go. And like, oh, it went downhill so fast. And like, I was trying so hard for like 5 meters of movement, and I was walking on like within like the first mile.
Really?
Like there's no energy. My legs were going numb. My arms were going numb. I already had taken in like 200 carbs in like 30 minutes, and like no energy was coming out. So yeah, to say it was frustrating is probably an understatement. I just, to feel like a year's worth of work, but you soon start to get grounded in how much bigger the event is than yourself and your own work. And like EmKay had people stopping me, more so they were like, what are you doing back here? And I'm like, I would joked with a couple people. I'm like, oh, I'm a closer. Really putting it back this year. Just want to give them a chance,
They're playing, and they're playing right into my trap here.
I was like, they're going to get each other tired. I'm back here in 80th. I'll catch up soon.
Well, it's brutal timing. And
yeah.
I certainly can relate. I'm sure probably all of us have had similar situations where you feel fit, you feel ready, you have big goals and expectations for yourself, especially coming after a podium last year on the world's biggest stage. I'm sure you wanted to, do that again, if not improve. And, it's happened to me traveling all the way to South Africa, to Hong Kong, getting sick during race week. It happened to your teammate Ruth Croft this week leading into UTMB. So it's part of sport. And I feel bad for you that it happened here. But
yeah, like EmKay, I'm proud I tried. I thought of Ruth. We have a couple other teammates, Abby Hall, Holly Page, and I'm like, they don't even get to try. Like, I need to at least try and give it what I have, even if I know what probably is going to happen. And I have a lot of tricks in my bag, and I tried all of them and some. And I think immediately as humans, you're like, oh, but everyone that came here to support me, everyone that believes in me, and then those people immediately like go back and they are hugging you, they're kissing you, and they're like, we love you. Like, it's okay. And I'm proud I pulled out. I kept saying body over pride because my body was
you'll bounce back, and then you'll have this fitness to utilize later in the season. Maybe we'll talk about that later in the show.
Training is never wasted.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Moving along to maybe happier subjects here. Our great podium finisher, Francesco Puppi. You nailed it yesterday, man. It was amazing. Give us the highlights.
It was a good day. But first, I want to thank EmKay and Dani for sharing their story, even if things didn't go as they wanted, as they expected, because I think it's very important to be authentic, and it makes me feel so much better about my own struggles and failures, because we all have failures and we're not just defined by our successes and victories. So to me, this is very important, and just wanted to say thanks for what they just said, what they shared. As far as my race, of course, I'm really happy. And I didn't go in with any particular expectation for two main reasons. One is because I was coming from a very disappointing finish at Sierre-Zinal a couple of weeks ago. I thought I had trained really well for that race because I had a very good training block in altitude that was specific for Sierre-Zinal. But I just had a bad day. Yeah. Just like Dani and EmKay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Happens.
And, even before Sierre-Zinal, I was kind of not expecting, but, thinking that maybe my second race after Sierre-Zinal would go better, because it takes time to process the training, especially after, a high volume, intensive training block. And I don't know, maybe going into Sierre-Zinal, I wasn't properly rested or didn't have enough time to taper. So like after Charles-de-Gaulle, I try not to beat myself up too much, honestly. I don't want my results to define my value as a person,
Yeah.
and it's something that I work really hard to get better at. So yeah, I'm proud of how I got over that race pretty quickly. Spent a few days on vacation with my girlfriend. We rode our bikes a lot, so it was like very chill, and had a good recovery. And then I came here for the first time at UTMB after having been here for a few years just to watch the race. I was excited to try my longest race ever, CCC, 56K, so a little longer than what I'm used to. But as I mentioned, I wasn't expecting like any particular result. I was just, looking forward to enjoying the experience and just be myself out there. Because if I do what I've trained for, if I do what I know I'm capable of, I know I can be among the best in the world. Like a lot of times when I'm on the start line and I look around and I see a bunch of like really strong athletes, and like a lot of them are a huge inspiration to me. I think, yeah, they're good, but I belong here because I've beat pretty much all these guys.
You've been on the podium at Worlds, twice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like in 2019 behind Jim Walmsley, and last year behind Stian.
Yep.
Yeah, Stian is beating me.
We'll talk about Stian here. I want to get you guys to fill us in.
But yeah, he's such a good competitor.
Yeah.
And one last thing I wanted to mention, the other day at the Chamonix track, I met Molly Settle, which is one of my all-time inspirations. And someone who has definitely made my relationship with running a better one.
Yeah. You posted about this on your Instagram.
So I really tried to go with that mindset.
The full send mindset.
Yeah, full send, but also don't put pressure on yourself to perform, because you just need to go out and do what you
enjoy it.
Yeah. What you gotta do.
Amazing. So tell us about the dynamic, because before we press record, I was just going through the results here, and we were talking about how the battle between second and fourth was separated by only 50 seconds, and you guys were only a couple minutes behind Stian, who won.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that the guy was breathing down your neck, sort of coming through the streets of Chamonix. Tell us how that evolved.
Yeah, that was pretty scary. So, it wasn't always easy. And to be honest, for example, until Trian, so about halfway through the race, I wasn't always feeling really good. Like I wasn't sure it was going to end up being a good day. And then at Triant, I kind of messed up my refreshment. So I lost some time, and the group I was running with pulled away from me. But as we hit the climb towards Col de Balme, I was able to make up some ground, and I managed to climb from 9th position until 5th place. And it was very, very nice and very useful for me to run the downhill to Argentière together with Joshua
Yeah.
Small and Robbie Simpson from Adidas Terex. So we kind of, switched back and forth and shared the trail for a little while. And as we went through Argentière, I filled up my flask. We were all together. And as soon as we hit the climb, I just felt really strong. And I was able to get a gap immediately from Joshua and Robbie. And I started thinking, okay, maybe I can get closer to Stian and the Chinese athlete that was still in front of me, because at that time I was in 3rd place. And I managed to catch him just maybe half a mile from La Flagère, which is the top of the last climb.
Mm-hmm.
And I passed through the refreshment point, and I was asking for some water. They opened the tap, and actually the water didn't flow. So wasn't able to get
come
any.
on.
I saw a few bottles on the table, so I grabbed one and I filled my flask. I closed it, and then I ran away. And as I was sipping, I realized it was like sparkling water. So it was like, oh. Fuck,
So refreshing.
That has
I
happened
can't
to me.
drink until the finish.
Yeah, that has happened to me way too many times. Like out here where that happened to me yesterday. I filled my bottles with sparkling water and I was like, this is disgusting.
See, if and when you guys ever graduate to like the 100-mile races, sparkling water from aid stations is delicious and you can drink it.
No.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, maybe when you're absolutely redlining at the front of OCC.
Like my stomach was already like on the limit because of the caffeine gels and the struggle.
Tell us about
working very hard.
What you mentioned with the scaffolding near the finish line and the third place athlete. Yeah.
So I think I ran a good downhill. I'm not like the best downhiller out there, but I can run pretty well, especially towards the end of a race. So I was running pretty fast, and going towards the final mile of the race, I thought my second place was almost secure. But there is like a bridge that goes over a road like in the last kilometer before the finish. And as I was running down the stairs of that bridge, I saw Antonio Martinez, who eventually came third, climbing up the stairs on the other side of the road. And I was like, oh my gosh.
So that's like a 10-second gap
Yeah.
for those who are
oh my
unfamiliar.
gosh.
Yeah.
Like he's freaking catching me. What am I gonna do? Like I don't know if I have the legs to pull it off. And I don't know, I just started running as hard as I could with the energies that I had left, because of course I didn't want to give him a chance I didn't want to get to a sprint finish because you never know how it's gonna end. Mm-hmm. And I was sprinting down the final kilometer along the river, and I mean, it worked. People were yelling me like, go full gas, because it was close. He was very close. I could definitely see him.
It's emblematic of how much the sport is advanced, though, right? I mean, but the fact that second through fourth place is separated by 50 seconds in the men's race,
it's
like
50K is
there's no margin for error. So I'm going to go through the top 10 results here, and since you guys are experts here, especially in this area category of the sport, sort of like the 50K sub ultra distance stuff, I'd love to have you add some perspective on some of the characters who performed well yesterday. Maybe we'll start with the men. I'd love to understand. So Stian, obviously such an impressive guy, Norwegian athlete, 2-time world champion, now 2-time OCC champion.
Golden Trail Series champion.
Yeah.
He's won.
Yeah, he's
pretty
collected
much
all the
everything.
crowns, pretty much.
Yeah,
It's
so
just like a wonderful human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about Stian makes him special? I mean, is he just a great all-around type athlete? I know because he sort of came from a VK uphill specialty background, didn't he?
Yeah, sky running also. And then as he joined the Salomon team, I think from like Golden Trail Series type of races. He's very good. He's very grounded.
Yeah.
He's very humble. And I think this is part of what makes him a great athlete. I think the fact that he trains in Norway. He's based in Bergen, Norway.
A lot of great athletes come from Bergen.
Is interesting because I don't know. There's something about Norway. The trails are technical and steep and like just hard enough that make you a really good and strong athlete on any terrain. And you clearly see that, of course, with Kilian, but also with John and Patter, for example.
And then like Christian Blumenfeld and Gustav Eden and triathlon.
Then of course, there is the like Norwegian training system that everyone is looking at.
Now in track, you've got Jakob Ingebrigtsen and the hurdler who's the world champion. I mean, the Norwegian endurance athletes are absolutely amazing.
So is also been very consistent through the years, and what I also like like about him is that, when he focuses on a goal, he rarely miss.
Yeah.
Like last year, his goal was to win the World Trail Champs.
And he didn't race until then, basically.
Yeah.
Anything you guys want to add about Stian?
I mean, Stian was probably like my favorite interview of the year so far. I really enjoyed getting to know him as a person. But yeah, I mean, like Francesco said, like once he sets his eyes on a goal, it's really hard for him to miss. And yeah, I think part of it is that he races less now. I think he was racing a lot a couple years ago, and it was still going well for him. But now he's just like, he's hitting it all the time.
Yeah, he's kind of like bumped up from what he already was. And with Stian, I really, when I've watched him race, which is seldom, but yesterday was another chance to do that. He just like, I believe many of the best sub ultra athletes can really crush a downhill and immediately transition. And he just has that nailed. Like he is not,
so
his quads are ready to go. Everything's firing.
This is something that's interesting that is not talked about a lot. It's like the importance of the transition between downhill and uphill and downhill, even in long course stuff too.
Last year at the World Champs, that's where he won the race. It was me, Stian and John Albon after the first downhill, and we had like a big climb afterwards, and that's where he got a gap. And
that lower
he
part
built
of the
his
climbs
finish.
after the transition. I felt like I interrupted you there.
Push hard.
Yeah, no, that's like, I mean, I believe that too. Just like watching the best athletes, and like when I'm taking notes, again, just like student brain, I'm like, that's what you need to nail. And like watching him come out of Argenteuil, because once I dropped, people were like, oh, you want to go home? I was like, no, take me to Argenteuil right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to see the rest of this race happen. And pretend I'm in there somehow.
I saw you in Argentina.
Give me my
like,
media credential.
Yeah.
Come with me.
Everyone was so sweet too. They'd be like, oh, Danny, what are you doing? I'm like, keep racing. But yeah, Stian just coming out of that, what is one of the, I think, a very key downhill in OCC before the last climb at a Col de Baume. He was just like full on like Mission Impossible sprinting, eyes darted forward and looked like it didn't even faze him.
Yeah.
And I was like, this man is going to crush this next uphill. And then I saw the footage of him and I'm like, it looks like he's in Mont Blanc Marathon. Just like, boom, up to the top again.
He's such a stud. I remember I think it was 2020 when he won OCC last time. We were at Cafe La Floria just watching runners come through, and he just came absolutely screaming through. And just, one of those athletes who is so impressive on the race course and off. So again, Stian Angermoon was our men's champion yesterday, followed closely by our co-host here today, Francesco Puppi. Looked like it was just over 2 minutes at the finish line. Really close race. On your tail was Antonio Martinez Perez, Spaniard, then Yusheng Guang, Chinese athlete, in fourth. Jeshrin Small, who I want to talk about in a second, in fifth. Robbie Simpson in sixth. Anthony Felber in seventh. Guangfu Meng in eighth. Tao Lu in ninth. And Jan Marguerite Soleil in 10th. 3 Chinese athletes in the top 10 there. And one of the things that I also wanted to just point out is the top 5 in both the men's and women's races, 5 different countries, which is so freaking cool. Let's talk about Jeshrin. Do you guys know him personally?
Yes.
What a freaking race by this kid.
What a talent.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That one surprised me a bit. Like, it may not have surprised you because like you're his teammate, but I don't know why I was surprised because, I mean, he's very young. And honestly, he gave Hayden Hawks like a decent run for his money at Canyons. And I like forgot about that completely. And so when I saw him first American, I was like, oh my gosh, I should have known. Like, such a good race.
Yeah.
I think he also ran like a veteran, like a much more experienced athlete. He's only 25, and I think he managed his race really well. He was running at the front, and it was just where he needed to be, and he had a strong finish.
Yeah, I think
So talented.
Yeah, he's extremely talented. He's so cool. Stay safe, Jeshrin. But yeah, I think what stands out to me the most is he is really just he himself has so much knowledge about the sport, but he is such a sponge, and he's just constantly taking stuff in. And I think with a team like Terex, where you have great athletes like Robbie Simpson that you could take notes from, who have been here before, have done it, know how to get onto the podium, etc. Amongst the rest of our team, etc. Yeah, he's just constantly taking notes, but he also has like his own way of doing it. It's not like, oh, they did it like that, so I need to do it like that. He's kind of just like constantly consuming, and also just from OCC last year, this was a goal for him too. He didn't make it so it's his only race on the calendar. He had some other races like Canyons. There's something down in South Africa, GoPro, etc. But he even has like a YouTube series too, where it's like Road to OCC. Everyone should check it out. Awesome. And so yeah, this was like a really big goal for him. So to see him up there, talking to him, like he just wanted to be in the race from the get-go, even if it was hurt.
That's what I loved about it. Is like he really put himself out there. He put himself in the fight. He put himself in position to have a spectacular day. And as you know, a top 5 finish here can do a lot for your career, especially as a sort of young up and coming athlete like he is. And so great to see Jeshrin probably outperform a lot of people's expectations for him here, but really showing that his potential is really high in the sport. And I think we'll see a lot more of him in the years to come. Anything else you want to mention from the men's race before we move on to the women?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was very interesting to see 3 Chinese athletes in the top 10.
Yep.
China is a part of the world that we tend to ignore, even outside sport. But, Asia is like 3 billion people, and it's like a universe that is there and that we don't know much about. And these athletes coming to UTMB, I think they opened our eyes on the fact that there is a trail running movement that is healthy and well developed, even in China, that we just don't know much about.
Exactly.
And everyone was expecting, the two Chinese athletes that started off in front to quickly blow up. But they actually didn't, and they finished in the top 10, and they're like super strong athletes.
Super strong.
So it's a sign that our sport is becoming more global, that the competition is increasing, and that new countries are making their appearance on the world stage.
Yeah.
So it's cool. Just like we cannot ignore Africa, for example. Yeah.
As we saw at Sears and all.
Yeah. I feel we should do a better job at communicating, like not ignoring that and not pretending that trail running is just a European and North American sport, because it's not anymore.
Great point.
Yeah. Well, so I think we saw that at Western States too, like with the addition of the
sport, for example.
Yeah, with the addition of a couple other races to get in, like it became so much more competitive when it wasn't just like which American can we get into this race?
For the longest time, it was only Californians who won Western States.
Can I say one more? No,
Please,
I know you're going to transition really quick. Something that I just wanted to note off the back of both what they said is like how aggressively they went out.
Yeah.
And I think for so long as Americans, when we would come to Europe, we're like, the Europeans go out aggressively. But that to me is just like, it's not that anyone is going out aggressively. They're just being competitive in their running. Because if you go on the start line of any road race in America, they go out aggressively.
Right.
And so to me, it's like, as we're starting to include the rest of the world, the whole level of the sport, like we are all saying, is going up.
Yep.
And like, I think everyone is going to start to do that.
It's one of the things we've been talking about all week is just the risks that you have to take to win on this stage now. And in each of these races, OCC, CCC, UTMB, I guarantee the winner is coming out of the front pack, basically. And you have to be on the gas, which means sometimes it's going to be a spectacular, flawless race, and sometimes it's going to be a ton of attrition, a ton of drops. And
I think you cannot expect to win anymore if you're not running a front race, and maybe you cannot even expect to win if you're running a smart race. Like at some point you will have to make a
bold
Like
decision.
a bold decision or
Yeah.
like a big move that is maybe out of your comfort zone, like take a risk,
Yeah.
and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but that's how it's become.
So expanding on your point, Francesco, it was so international. Like I said, all 5 of the top 5 came from different countries. So I'm just going to list the 7 countries that were included in the men's top 10, and then we'll do the same for the women because it's equally remarkable. So we had Norway, Italy, Spain, China, US, Great Britain, France, China, Spain. So 7 countries in the top 10 on the men's race, and there was 8 in the women's race. So transitioning over to that now, let's start with the champion, Tony McCann, South African. Really cool to see that country represented on the top of the podium here. And I don't know that much about her, so I'd love to just open the floor to you guys to enlighten us a little bit.
I'll chat about Tony.
Please.
Yeah, she's my teammate. So Tony was 5th last year at OCC. And, you know, as much as we like to highlight the top 10 the week of, it tends to be that washes away sometimes and you just remember the top 3. But she had a very great finish behind Kimber Maddox last year. She came in, so after that race, she then went to Ultra Trail. And she broke a record on a course that both Holly Page and Ruth Croft have run on. So that's some great company.
Really famous South African trail race.
Exactly. And then she came into this year and she won Transvolcania Marathon to get into OCC. With these UTMB races kind of getting diluted, which I'm sure we all can kind of agree to right now because you're trying to get not gems. I keep changing it, stones and stuff like
gems.
that. But that was an exceptional performance. Like if you look at her splits and stuff like that, like very smart, very even all the way through and came in guns ablaze on the downhill. So another result that I forgot to highlight also is she was second behind Sarah Alonso last year at Trans Gran Canaria, not that far behind, which is a downhill course. Coming into this year after Transvolcania, though, I forget how she did it, but she like had a collarbone injury.
She was spectating at Worlds, and she literally just like skid out on the bike and landed and broke her collarbone.
Oh,
yeah,
geez.
yeah, and so she wasn't able to race there.
I remember.
And she was. Honestly, I had her pinned as like a podium favorite in my head, and she didn't get to show it. Sound familiar? We've all been there. And so she kind of was on the bike for a bit, and then it wasn't until maybe like a couple of weeks ago, even when I was here for Eiger, like she had just started running, but she had put a ton of work in on the bike. And yeah, I mean, I think she believed it. But I still think she had some hesitation. Like her dream goal was to win this race, to do better than last year, etc. And just chatting to her, it was just one of those magical days where everything clicked. For me, I believe that, but I also just know how much work she's put in there. And so like to see her win was amazing. It wasn't like surprising though. I was like, no, she can win this race. And even the day before, she knew how I was feeling, and I told her, I'm not the reason why she run, but I was just like, Tony, like you can win. Like you need to believe that. And I'm like, I'm going to do what I can, but like you can win and like do that. So it was so cool to see her already accomplish like such a big goal. And I'm sure her goals are going to start to evolve now from it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Thanks for that fly on the wall perspective of your guys' conversations and the moments before a huge breakthrough win for Tony. Anything you guys want to add about Tony before?
Just wanted to add that. So she ran 5 hour 18 for 53 kilometer and 3,100 meters of elevation.
Sick fast.
As the course ended up being, which is 36 minutes slower than Stian's time, which I feel is like super close, like such a small gap. And also thinking how relatively fast the men's race was, I think is very impressive.
Yeah, great
Something
point.
that should be highlighted.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, Dani and I had talked about the course change earlier in the week, and we both kind of decided that the winning time was probably going to be like 5:30. So to see her run 5:18, I was like, oh my gosh.
We were expecting around 5 hours because we figured with approximately 2 miles shorter, would be like 20 minutes faster, but we ended up being 35 minutes faster than the course record.
Yeah, EmKay speculated here earlier in the week that it was going to be 30 minutes faster.
Yeah.
The men was about that.
The women's was
Tony was
so
50
much
minutes faster than last year. Oh my goodness.
Insane.
Tony McCann, amazing. I just started following her on Instagram a couple months ago. And anyway, don't know her well personally, but wow, what a spectacular performance. Hopefully we can get her on the podcast or something soon. Second place, Katie Scheid. Holy smokes.
Wow.
She is so solid. So just to sort of bring something full circle that I've been talking about throughout the week is Katie now has podium finishes at OCC, CCC, and UTMB, which I think is so remarkable in this age of specialization to see people who do have that versatility and can go up and down in distances. Finishing second place here after one of the all-time great 100-mile performances at Western States in June. Katie Scheid was 8 minutes back of Tony McCann in second place. What do you think about Katie's performance?
I think prior to Western States, I would not have put her in like my top 10 even maybe. Like just because this field is so competitive. But after Western States, I was like, shit, she's fast. Like, and she's been working like for this. And so I definitely didn't underestimate her maybe as much as I would have prior to Western States, but I still did not see second place. Like that was an insane performance. And like from the beginning, I was running with her and Tony for a little bit and she just was like, she just sent it. Like, cause that's what you have, like we were just talking about, that's what you have to do now. Like if you're going to put yourself in a position to win, you have to go out in the front. And she wasn't messing around. It was cool to see from my vantage point. But for a while there, I was like, okay, we're racing Katie Scheid today. We're racing Jen Lichter. We're racing Tony. Like it's going to be a battle. And it was, so cool to see her just like tear it up out there.
Wow. Unreal.
Yeah, I had a couple of friends who were coming up to me while we were here in Chamonix, like, what about Katie Scheid? And I was like, don't underestimate her for sure. Like, I keep thinking back to when Courtney did Zagama and got 10th there. And I was like, and she knows these trails. And since Western, she's just been doing what looks like speed.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's nearly the near perfect pyramid that a coach would put together, is like do a bunch of volume and then you sharpen.
And especially for Western States, she's doing like faster volume too. So then you just do the specificity of vertical and it translates pretty well, it seems like.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was looking at some of her splits and like, she was sending the downhills, which like I think as sub ultra runners, we tend to think, oh, that's kind of maybe our niche, maybe what levels up above is that our downhills tend to be a little bit faster, more aggressive, more intense. But she put herself right in the mix with them. And that's how she ended up on second. So it's pretty cool.
So let me just go through the top 10 here and then we can add any other stories from some of these other characters who I'm sure you guys are more familiar with than me. So again, we had Tony McCann in first, Katie Scheid in second, Mao Yao in third, Caitlin Fielder in fourth, Daniela Omis in fifth, Rachel Drake in sixth, Candice Ferton in seventh, Luis Serbin Penhote in eighth, Nuria Jill in ninth, and Anastina Erikila from Finland in 10th. Excuse me, that wasn't great. But I would love to mention something about Rachel Drake, but just to, come back to this internationalization component, 8 countries represented in the top 10 in the women's race. South Africa, US, China, New Zealand, Germany, France, Spain, Finland. Yeah. So cool. So cool.
Yeah. It's wild too. Cause like, if you think of the start list, I really thought, I was like, maybe America could take like 5 spots this year.
Yeah. Danny and I were feeling confident about like how many American women we were going to get in the top 10. And then, we still got 2, which is awesome.
Yeah. The same. Yeah. Maybe less than last year, actually.
Yeah.
We had 3 last year.
5 of the top 6 ranked women in the race were Americans by UTMB index.
Yeah. With us and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it just goes to show, I mean, a start line could be the craziest looking start line, but you don't know until the day of.
Especially in a race that's competitive.
And so many components and stuff like that. Rachel Drake, can we talk about her?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, you want to go first? You're her teammate, Nike?
Yeah, sure. She's my teammate and someone that I really look up to. Of course, she was coming from giving birth less than a year ago, I believe 11 months ago. And also a postpartum injury, a sacral stress fracture. So it's not a secret. It hasn't been the easiest season for Rachel. But I think what she was able to accomplish yesterday and over the past couple of months should not be overlooked. It's really, really cool. She's just kept growing race after race. She started from Dolomites, that is a stage of the Golden Trail Series in Italy. She went to Cerzinal and she improved. And then I think she was able to pull off a very solid performance yesterday. And it was cool to also see Tyler Green supporting her up at Col de Balme. Tyler, of course, is racing UTMB. So I hope this will give him some good energy for his race too.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. We just had Tyler and Rachel on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and Rachel was just talking about how she's just been sort of like slowly coming back from the pregnancy and then the stress fracture that you mentioned, and that each race she seemed to be making a little bit more progress, and then boom, 6th place here at OCC. And those of us who know Rachel know how insanely talented she is. She was second at the Golden Trail World Final in 2020 when they did it in the Azores. And, you know, that I think is representative of her talent and her capabilities in the sport. And I think for sure she can improve even upon that 6th place. And it'll be interesting to see. I think she's sort of similar to someone like Katie Scheid, where I think she could do similar stuff at CCC. She has finished that race as well. Maybe someday even the big 100-mile race, not to think too far ahead of ourselves, but really proud of Rachel and her performance out there yesterday.
Well, and just to mention that both she and Daniela Oymas are new moms, finishing right next to each other, 5th and 6th. Like, how inspirational.
Super cool.
Yeah. I love Rachel. You know, I love you, Rachel. I appreciate her working out in such a visible way. I think a lot of times when you're coming back, whether it's from injury or a mom, you kind of want to hide away from the world until you're baked just right. And so I've just really appreciated her getting out there still with her signature smile, being super happy. And yesterday I could see discomfort in her face for a little while, you know, like you could tell she was really pushing. And I feel that, I mean, yes, we all know she's a talent and she's been working out in the light. But I think she's finally crossing that line and getting closer and closer. And I just know once she's like back to full force, she's going to surpass what she did before. So I'm really happy that
we should mention that she's less than a year postpartum right now.
Yeah, like 11 months. Yeah, that's incredibly impressive.
So we are about an hour deep into CCC now. Anything else you guys want to add about OCC before we start talking about the longer races?
I don't think so.
Cool.
Just wanted to mention, I was also very impressed with Katie Scheid's result. And I think, you know, thinking about all the athletes, I think this versatility had only been displayed before by Kilian Jornet. Like it's almost as versatile as Kilian, who was alternating long and short distance races last year. He went from the Gamma to Hard Rock to Cerzinal to UTMB. And I still consider Katie a sort of like 50K runner, 50K to 50 mile actually. But the fact that she's been able to combine Western State with this second place at OCC,
doing it in the same season is amazing.
Dimension to her as an athlete. Of course, I mean, she broke the old course record at Western State, and that was a huge deal. But this is something very, very, very solid. Yeah,
one of the things we've been talking about is the history here at UTMB. Xavier Thévenard has won OCC, CCC, UTMB and TDS. Of course, he's got 3 UTMBs too. So remarkable performances over time from Xavier. I doubt anybody will ever match that, winning all of the races. But now Katie Scheid has podiums, OCC, CCC, UTMB. Petter Engdahl has a chance to enter that pantheon if he finished on the podium at UTMB, having
And
finished on the podium at
Blondine.
OCC.
Blondine.
And
Yeah.
Blondine. And also Mimi Kotka has done that.
Yeah.
Petter reminded me of that the other
She
day.
mentioned like Xavier was like 10 years ago. Petter is like, you know, in the past couple of years, and the sport has changed and got way more competitive. So I think it's difficult to compare, but yeah.
If he was to podium at UTMB, it would be commensurate with Katie's double, right? Because he just finished 3rd place at the Mont Blanc Marathon too, which is one of the highest level sub-ultra distance races on the planet. So anyway.
Ruth Croft too. I totally
Yeah,
forgot.
no,
She's
yeah.
won
Ruth.
CCC, won OCC twice.
She's not going to be racing.
She
She's not
doesn't
gonna
have a
race,
chance, but she's kind of in that company
will.
as
It's
well.
too bad, man.
I'm
I
so
know.
bummed.
Ruth is such a champ, but again, just like we mentioned at the front of the show, it's part of sport, and she's got the head on her shoulders that'll, I'm sure, lead to great performances later this summer and later on in the fall.
I do have one more person that I want to talk about because we kind of skipped over her, but Yao Miao. She won CCC in the past.
Yep.
3rd here. I know that she's not really satisfied with that result because she was 2nd at Mont Blanc Marathon, like 4th, I think, at Sears and all. And I think she really wanted this one to be like the one, but still huge performance.
So
She's crushing it this year.
Yeah, she was the early leader throughout the day yesterday. I think it was at the top of Col de Balme when Tony finally had put a gap on her. But yeah, it's one of those athletes who always takes the biggest risks, always goes for it, races fearlessly, and it paid off at CCC. I think it was 2018 or 2019 when she broke the course record in what was at that point like sort of a unprecedented performance on the CCC course. So again, another one of those athletes who's shown versatility across distances.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing her up. All right, let's talk about CCC. We could spend all day on OCC, but we've got so much to talk about.
Yeah,
here.
give us an update. What's happening over there?
No major. We'll get updates in about 10 minutes. So thanks for teeing that up. The lead men should be at the top of the first climb in about 10 minutes. And that first climb is an absolute monster, leaving Courmayeur on the Italian side of Mont Blanc. I've got the start list up in front of me. I don't think any of you guys do. So maybe I'll just like list off a few names and then you guys can provide some color. And actually, Francesco, I'd like to start with you with Andreas Reiterer, a fellow Italian athlete. And before we press record here, we were just sort of talking about Andreas and what makes him special. And I mentioned that it does feel like in this age of specialization where if you guys are sort of considered sub-ultra 50K type athletes, our panelists here, Courtney DeWalter sort of considered a 100-mile specialist. Andreas Reiterer is really chiseling out a specialty for himself in this middle distance between sort of 80 to 120K. What makes Andreas so good?
Yeah. I first met Andreas in 2019 and he was pretty new to the sport. I remember running with him the Ultra Trail Champs, where he had a, kind of good expectation, but it was his first international race. And he ended up like pretty far behind. And I think that was an experience that allowed him to grow a lot and understand his place in the sport. Since then, he's worked hard. He is never turned away from the competition. Even he's come to do short races and he's come to get his butt kicked just to improve. And he has become the best in the ultra distances in Italy, and not just in Italy because he's one of the best in the world. He finished on the podium both in Thailand last year at the World Trail Champs. He was 3rd in the race won by Adam Peterman. And this year was 2nd in Innsbruck behind Benjamin Rubiol. He was 2nd at Ultra Trail Cape Town behind Jim Walmsley. He was 3rd last year at CCC. So it's just been really consistent.
He's been 4th at CCC too. Super consistent.
Super consistent at a high level in the 80 to 100K distance. And as Dani was mentioning regarding Josh Ryan, he is he is a sponge as well. Like he's learned so much from a lot of great athletes, and he's such a hardworking athlete too. He trains a lot. He's not scared to work hard and do big things. And maybe it's also interesting to mention that he lives in a region of Italy that is called Südtirol, where they speak German. So he's like, he speaks better German than Italian, but of course he's still Italian.
That's like is that where Danny Young is from too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's it's a pretty special region, like great mountains, great places to run. But maybe, I mean, I think it feels Italian, but it's, I don't know, sort of weird.
Yeah. Cool. Cool.
A bit of a disconnect.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, Andreas Reder, of course, like our audience will be mostly American that listens to this. We have a lot of international listeners, but I think it's important to introduce people like Andreas to a mostly American listenership. I'd also love to have Dani and EmKay talk about Thibaut Baronian, who's in the CCC race this year. I know you all have done a lot of competitions with him on the Golden Trail World Series. He's been on the podium here at CCC 2 years ago. He dropped out last year, but again, we've been talking all morning about people who step up and down in distances. What about Thibaut? We talked about him on the Sierras and All podcast we did too. So.
Yeah. He's just like so consistent. It's insane. Like, I mean, other than maybe dropping out, like I feel like he's never outside of the top 10 in any race that he does, and really not out of the top 5. But like he's shown that he can do like the longer stuff pretty well. He's been third here before. He was second at Madeira stage race last year, which was like basically an ultra. I mean, I'm a Thibaut fangirl, so I'm excited to see how this year goes because he's got the experience, he has the consistency, he just has to have the right day.
Yeah, to me, he's just always like a smart racer too. He knows the course really well. He has this he's very fun personality, but I also feel like there's kind of a mastermind, lurking up in the brain. And he just always figures out how to get in mostly the top 5 and then on occasion the top 10.
Yeah, awesome. So maybe just ticking through some of the other favorites here. I'll just list off a bunch of names and then maybe ask you guys to not necessarily make predictions, but who do you think are poised for great performances at CCC? And then we'll close by talking about UTMB here in just a little bit. But obviously Jonathan Albin is back, last year's second place finisher, and who was under the course record, only beaten by Petter Engdahl's, sort of unprecedented, otherworldly win at CCC last year. We got a lot of great Americans on both sides. We got Drew Holman, Eric LaPuma, Seth Ruling. On the women's side, Helen Mino-Faulkner, Allison Baca, Erin Clark, Hannah Allgood, Audrey Tanguay's here, Emily Forsberg. We talked about Shen earlier, coming off 4th place at Western States. Any of those characters you guys want to expand on, or others that I didn't mention?
Yeah, I'd love to add in Emily Hoggood. She is severely underrated as a runner. Her ability to double at Western States and UTMB, very consistent. Also Emily Schmitz, she was maybe a surprise at top 10 at Worlds, but she's also a runner who's lived in Europe, knows these trails really well. She actually lives here. She's very strong. Who else are you going to add?
Ida Nielsen. She's my teammate. Can't ever counter out. She just ran Ultra Vossen and won like 2 weeks ago, but I have no doubt that she is.
I picked her to win.
Yeah, I know. Like I still am like, Ida could win this too. Like no big deal. But and also Marcela Vasanova. Like she went out really hard at Worlds, kind of like paid for it later on, but she's a very strong athlete. She I think probably learned from that experience. And so I'm excited to see how this goes for her. I'm stoked to see how John Albin does. I feel like he's always like this close to winning a race, and it doesn't happen often. It happened at Mont Blanc Marathon last year, but like this year he's had a couple of like 3rd places, and he was 3rd at Worlds. Was he 3rd at Worlds this year too, or was he 4th?
No, he was 5th.
Oh, he's 5th at Worlds this year. And it's just like, he's so close every time. Like maybe this is his year.
Yep. Yeah, he's so tough, John Albin from Great Britain, of course, also an obstacle course racing world champion, just a great all-around athlete.
Lives in Norway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lives in Norway, of course. EmKay, tell us about Helen, because we've been talking about Jesrin this morning, and I feel like she's sort of like the equivalent in the CCC field of like, she's going to put herself in the fight today.
Yes. Yeah.
And if she's able to put together the performance that she's capable of, it can really help to take her profile to the next level in the sport, similar to Jesrin yesterday.
Yeah, I'm so stoked for Helen. After this, I'm actually headed to Champay-Lac to crew for Helen. We were college teammates and we've been friends for a really long time. And Helen, I wouldn't describe her like Jesrin. I wouldn't say she's necessarily a sponge. She's definitely a fan of the sport, but not in the same way that like
Free
all of
spirit.
us are.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's definitely just like here to be in a beautiful place. As she says, she's a professional jogger. Like running is the thing that she does during races, and that's it. But I think that Helen has been working her butt off. I remember last year there were a couple of weeks that I got up to like 100 miles a week, and she was like, "That is so dumb. Why would you ever do that?" But Helen has done that a couple of times this year. Shout out to Rick, our coach, who's been pushing her just like a little bit further every year. But I think if Helen has a great day and it clicks for her, I mean, I have her on the podium.
Yep.
She's like the toughest gal. I mean, her performance at Speed Goat blew me away.
Yeah.
When I found out that she was running Speed Goat, I was like, oh, she'll do great. Like, but like she says, she's a jogger. So I'm like, no way Helen's going to like run faster than I thought she'd run like 6:20.
Yeah.
And she ran like 6:05.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, Helen is ready for a big year.
Yeah. She's good in the mountains. Check this out, guys. We've got the visuals of the lead men coming up to the top of the
nice.
first climb at
Section.
CCC.
Bertone to Bonatti is like,
Yeah. So unfortunately, our viewers and listeners can't capture this visual, but wow, what a spectacular view of the Italian side of the Mont Blanc as the lead men start to make their way up and over the top of the first climb. It's a 4,500-foot climb. And then for the next half marathon or so, it's very runnable. One of the things, as we talk more specifically about CCC, one of the things that I think makes it difficult is that the first 50K is a lot faster than the second 50K. Sort of one of the things that makes UTMB difficult is that the first half is much easier than the second half. That's why we see so much attrition typically in the UTMB race, especially on the men's side of things. But I mean, unbelievable competition here at CCC. And when you put together a broadcast like this, it's sort of like, how is it that people in the world don't trail run? So we'll get an update as to who these people are. I think I saw at least Shen and John Albin here in these top three, but we'll get an accurate split here momentarily. But we should talk about the conditions and maybe a little bit more about the course. If you guys wanted to expand on what I just said, it's like perfect conditions. It feels like for the CCC and UTMB races, it should be sort of upper 60s throughout today and tomorrow, probably like low 40s, maybe a little bit cooler than that in the mountains tonight. It's going to be kind of a perfect UTMB.
Yeah. I mean, like it's night and day compared to last year.
Yeah.
Last year it was so hot, and it's so funny with the race week literally being 1 week later this year. Last week was so hot.
It was
and
disgusting.
It just shifted. It just feels like a completely different place. There's snow-capped mountains in
it's even more beautiful.
It's definitely beautiful. With that, like you need to, I believe, like put yourself in the race a lot sooner because not as many people are going to be affected, because when you have great conditions, the attrition happens a lot later.
Yep.
So you have to be able to cover moves, know when those moves are going to happen. For CCC, it depends on where they're coming from in the world. Maybe like they get ready for the nighttime because it has been a little bit chilly. And with CCC too, like you what's it called, there are stretches that you don't really see people for a while. So I think it's important that like you stay engaged, especially if the race is going quicker than you think, and you might have to like put the watch away and not think about splits from previous years, etc.
Yeah. And we should say that last year was good conditions too, as we saw course records go down in both CCC and UTMB. We'll see if those are going to be in play here today. Guys, are you ready to be excited here?
Yes.
As I have splits over the top of the first climb.
Come on.
In first place, Ryan Thrower, your boy, Seth Ruling, leading the men's race.
I was like,
Yeah.
He's
Ryan's
going
in the
for
race?
it. Ryan Thrower.
Second place, Shen Jin Shen. Third place, Hu Ho Zhang, another Chinese athlete. Fourth place right now is Luke Grenfell-Shaw from Great Britain. I don't know anything about him. Andreas Reiterer in fifth, who we just spoke about. Dakota Jones in sixth. Thibaut Baronian in seventh. And it looks like the eighth and final person through there as of now is Simon Gosselin, a Frenchman. So anyway, that's our top 8 over the course.
All
over
together
the top,
or kind of spread apart?
Yeah, pretty much together. It looks like separated by about a minute or two. And I'm sure, we just got updates. So 9th and 10th are Baptiste Petitjean, Frenchman, and Antoine Charvelin, also Frenchman, in 10th. So anyway, very early. They're going to be at the Bertone here in 12 or 13 minutes too, the first major aid station on the CCC course. So we'll get another good update from that. Anything else you guys want to talk about on CCC before we spend a little time on UTMB and then wind down for the day?
I think for me, I'm excited for the Americans in both races. 2 Americans that I'm really excited to watch, though, are Dakota Jones and Drew Holman.
Yep.
It wouldn't be surprised to me if they could end up on the podium or if they end up on the podium. And I love the way they race.
Yep.
So I'm just excited to see how that unfolds.
Dakota's one of my favorite all-time trail runners. So he and I come from the same generation, even though he's a few years younger than I am, but put together another victory at Transvolcania this year, 11 years after winning it the first time in 2012,
crazy.
Which is amazing, right? And then he went toe-to-toe with Tom Evans at Western States. They duked it out in the most amazing, brilliant, heroic way. Tom, of course, went on to be victorious. Dakota struggled to, sort of like a 17 or 18 hour finish, I think it was. But Dakota's one of those athletes who's always going to put himself in there.
Yeah.
Has that self-belief, has that competitiveness, and has the talent, but is also just like the chillest, most down-to-earth guy ever. So.
Yeah, and Drew Holman was demandingly won Lake Sonoma and then was the first American to finish in that iconic men's from the US in the long trail this year at Worlds. So yeah, same. Also excited. I'm really excited to see what Alison Baca does.
Yep.
Because I think she was a bit of both her and Emily were a bit of a surprise at Worlds and wow, just so tough.
Yeah, also in the mom category too.
Yes. Yeah, her kid is the cutest. Oh my gosh.
Puma also, I think, is a strong contender.
Yeah.
He just signed for Adidas Terex. Big fan of Eric.
7th in the last 2 world championships.
Yeah.
Another consistent
He'll be
performer.
rocking the new Agravic Speed Ultra.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
It's also based on the east side of the U.S., which is kind of cool.
Unusual to be able to be that good in the mountains when you live in a place like Vermont and compete against people who live in the Alps or Colorado or California, etc. So shout out Eric LaPuma. It'll be great to see. Yeah, it's the mustache. Yeah.
All right.
There's a little bit of American bias on this panel here,
Yeah.
but even our good friend Francesco can fall for it sometimes.
American. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we will adopt you any day. Okay, let's talk about UTMB. Holy smokes, what's really cool is UTMB is of course the biggest race here. Yeah. The whole event is named after it, right? But now these other events are emerging from its shadow in a lot of ways. And I think UTMB has done a great job to create this world final system so that athletes of different specialties can really show off their talents. And it's not all about the 100-mile race, but still it is so fun to talk about the 100-mile race. And it is always one of, if not the most competitive race of the year. On the women's side, clear favorite is Courtney Dauwalter coming in even after her amazing course record performances at Western States at Hard Rock. The men's side is totally wide open, I think. Kilian Francois Xavier, 11 of the last 14 victories are no longer here. We do have Pau Capel and Ludovic Pomeray, former champions in the race. I don't think either of them come in as clear favorites. Opening it up to the panel, what do we think about UTMB tonight?
Holy cow. The men's race is you got Jim, you got Tom Evans, and Patter. Oh my! And there's one other American. I feel like I'm forgetting about the one I read it earlier.
Miller?
No,
or Zach
Zach Miller. Yeah, Nick Miller. Sorry, Zach. It's I have no idea who's gonna win.
Yeah,
it's pretty open. I guess there are different reasons why. A lot of athletes have a strong chance to win or get a good performance or be on the podium. I think for Tom Evans, it comes down to how well he's recovered from Western States. For Peter Engdahl, it's his 100-mile debut, so I think he's very well prepared, but it's still a big question mark. Yeah, but it will be super exciting. And I just wanted to add that I think it's good that UTMB has given the same importance to the 3 different distances, making them the finals of the 50K, 100K, and 100-mile events.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I mean, UTMB is definitely the biggest race, but I think CCC and OCC are also equally important. So that's something cool to me.
Yeah, great. So before we talk about the women, maybe spending a little bit more time on the men, you've mentioned, I think, the favorites. My prediction, or my, I don't know, I guess hot take, is that there's a group of 5 from which the winner will emerge. Those being Jim, Tom, Hannes, Petter, and Mathieu Blanchard, who's flying under the radar somehow.
Yeah,
after running
he was the
under
other one I was
20
thinking
hours.
about.
Yeah.
John Connolly.
So I view them as the people who really have a legitimate chance of winning. Obviously, there's 1,000 other very talented men who will be competing, I think, for the 2nd through 10th and 20th type positions. But Tom Evans sat on that couch yesterday, and Ryan and I, after he left, were like, oh my God, that guy is scary. Just like how methodical and detail-oriented and professional he is. And his ability to like articulate his process too. He's very gifted in that department too. So anyway, after Tom left yesterday, we were like, that guy's going to win. Holy smokes. One of the things he said off mic that I think is worth mentioning here, it wasn't like a private conversation. I don't think he would mind me saying this.
His cell phone
But
number
what he said was like, yeah, I just think like when Jim is thinking about how am I going to beat Tom Evans, I try and reverse engineer what Jim's thinking and then shrink that surface area so that, whatever he perceives as my weaknesses are not my weaknesses. And I was just like, God, dude, I would not want to race you. Just a scary guy. He's your teammate. You want to say anything about Tom?
Yeah, Tom is a professional for sure. Like the truest definition of that. And Tom would not have showed up if he didn't think he was going to win. 100%. Mm-hmm. Like he is so much of a professional that it's like he's only going to put his body through this again if he has a very strong feeling he's going to win. Mm-hmm. And yeah, what you guys like see on the media and stuff, he's like that in person. He's also additionally very pleasant to be around, always sharing with us anything we want to learn and gain from him.
It was cool that they were cheering me yesterday, both him and Petter.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's there for the team and stuff like that. But yeah, he's definitely here to win, and he'll do everything in his power that he can on race day, push himself, etc. And I mean, last year the dude was coming off of almost a year being absent from the sport and got onto the podium. And that 100% is because of everything that he's constantly thinking about. Yep. And he gave himself that chance to do that through the race, through preparation, etc. And there's a new YouTube video. We did a screening of it for Terex this week in a theater. It was really cool. You got to see on the big screen. It featured Petter, Emily Hoggood, Abby Hall, and Tom Evans. And there's a very chilling quote in it where he says something like, "Don't tell me what's impossible because I'll make it possible." Something like that. And you're just like, oh, I'm not. But it was like also inspiring. I was like, I'm going to run through a brick wall right now.
Dude, it was crazy. Like hearing him talking about just like every little detail. He's like knows exactly, because the race is a week later, how that's going to impact the amount of light that they have, or when it'll get dark, when it'll get light, where he may be on the course at that time. He was talking about his final massive training round, how he did like a full aid station simulation to just like know how it's going to go when he changes his shirt, and like how every detail of his pack is like totally thought out. I was just like, my goodness, dude, like this sport is on a whole different level, and people like Tom are really taking us there. It's really cool.
My husband Tommy is like a big Tom Evans fan, and like because Tom's on Strava, which is really cool. And Tommy definitely bought us a lactate threshold monitor after he was like, Tom Evans does it on his treadmill. We have the same treadmill. We just need the lactate monitor. I was like, okay, Tommy, we'll do it.
Yeah. It'll definitely be. I'm so excited. I mean, going back to Jim, our American Jim Walmsley, like he has a lot of that too. He doesn't talk about it as much, but that's what's going on behind the scenes. And for him to he is not lining up unless he knows he can win or has a very strong chance of winning. And I just appreciate his intentionality behind picking races and stuff like that. We saw it with Western States. The dude crushed it. He could have stopped there, and he's like, no, I can go faster.
Yep.
Goes back the next year, drops it even more. Watching him do the Carbon X2 project a couple years ago and literally seeing him push himself through so much pain, I was like, that is why he's undeniably one of the best in the world. So
Very well said.
I'm excited to see them match up.
I also think it'd be fun for us to talk about the style in which Jim's approaching it this year. And one of the things Corinne and I talked about at the beginning of the week is that, he's been dark on Strava. He didn't start the world championships due to injury. So a lot of people in our world were speculating he's hurt, right? And then he drops on Instagram, I'm ready. And of course, like Tom, Jim would not say that if it wasn't true. He hasn't done any media all week. He's intentionally kept his head down. He's probably hoping people are talking about him less and letting people like sort of Tom occupy the conversation.
Yeah.
Jim Walmsley, 4th place and 5th place here. He's devoted his entire life moving out here to this race, and this is his best shot yet.
Yeah.
It's super exciting. I really like Tom as an athlete, but my heart is for sure for Jim.
Us too, the American, a resident Italian American.
Yes.
Here, yes.
Sorry, Tom, but it's my all-time inspiration. Also for personal reasons, because one of the best performances that I ever did was a fight between me and Jim in Patagonia at the 2019 World Trail Champs, and I remember he was thanking me for pushing him to his absolute limits, just like he did on that day, and I think we shared a lot on that day, and it was cool. I think this kind of unusual path or build up towards this UTMB will ultimately benefit him. Of course, it's wide open, and we're gonna find out tomorrow. But I'm excited.
We have to start wrapping up here because our cameras are going to die, and I want to leave some time to talk about the women and provide a couple more updates. We could talk forever about the men's race. Just a few sort of closing points on the men. Number one, I think Tyler Green's going to do really well. I think he's in a great position, and another one of those athletes who really flies under the radar, and another person who we were all really impressed with this week and who's been, I think maybe lesser known in especially the American trail running culture, but Hannes Nammerger, I think, has a really good chance of, winning or being on the podium, especially after a disappointing DNF last year. Yeah. He's been as consistent really as anybody on the world stage at these ultra distances. So anyway, like I said, we could go on forever.
And
Women's race.
I think Petter will be a monkey wrench in everyone. Yeah. They're like, no one knows what to expect, and he's very aggressive.
Yeah. And we were talking about this too, and I kind of am predicting that it's going to be a little bit more of a cat and mouse game in the men's race. Like, I don't know if we're going to see... Pau Capel's going for sub 20, so he's going to be hot off the front.
Love Pau.
But I kind of think of that group of 5 who I think have a chance of winning, I think it's going to be a little bit more tactical this year. Just because of the absence of some of the other guys.
Yeah.
Anyway.
The women's race, though.
Get us started.
Such a bummer about Ruth Croft. I really thought she was like the one person that I was like, for sure she's going to give Courtney a run for her money. Ruth doesn't show up to races unless she's ready to like go for it. She hasn't raced pretty much all year. She's run a couple of like smaller races, but like she has put all of her eggs in this basket, and I'm so bummed. So bummed.
Makes the race very well.
Yeah. But we do have some other women, I think, in Blondine. I mean, this is pretty new for her, but she pretty much like always knocks it out of the park. I mean, she's so tough.
It hasn't been the easiest year for her.
Yeah. She's dropping out at Worlds.
Injuries and...
Yeah.
First 100 miler too.
Yep. Yeah. I think Esther Sislig had a great day at Western States. I think she's ready to have a great day here. And
she was 4th last year.
Yeah. And she did really well at Worlds in Thailand. She didn't go to Worlds. Oh, because she was doing states.
5th at Worlds last year.
Yeah. And then the other person that I have my eye on, at least, is my teammate, Aroasio.
Yeah.
She was eighth last year, and she's just like a silent killer, man. Like, she told me yesterday, she's like, man, I don't know how you do the short stuff because you have to go out so hard. She's like, I love to relax in the beginning. The race doesn't start until Courmayeur. And I was like, Aroa's ready.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Taylor
UTMB
Allen,
athletes athletes with that kind of disposition.
Yeah. Oh, Taylor and Allen too.
Yep.
Another one, top 10 at Western States. But yeah, I think the storyline, undisputably so, is still Courtney Dauwalter. Is she going to go out? Like, how's the body going to do? If she wins, it still won't be surprising. She's Courtney Dauwalter, but it'd be nice to see some of the women, like, you know, going and challenging with her, you know, seeing some tactics and stuff like that. And yeah, I think the big question, as soon as she signed up, that came to my mind was, does she think she can break her own course record? Yeah. Is she solely going for the win?
If she broke all three of those in the same summer, it'd be ridiculous.
I'd be like, just, you're good. You're good.
I mean, her 22:30, I think, is one of the greatest performances in history. Sure. I was here in 2013 and witnessed Rory Bozio break the course record that year, and it took everything Courtney had to come back and break Rory Bozio's record. So, of course, she ran 15:29 at Western States, shattering Ellie Greenwood's course record, then lowered her own hard rock course record by 30 minutes in July. If she was able to do all three course records in the same summer, I mean, it would, if she wins, it'll already be one of the greatest sporting achievements in history, I think, across any sport. If she broke the course record at the same time, it's like
she's already the GOAT, but then she's like, she's stamped in history.
Anyway, there's nothing more to say about Courtney. She's just so amazing, and she's also such a good person. And I think those two things are not unrelated. You know, she clearly loves what she does, and it's made her, I think, you know, undisputably the greatest of all time. Some other people who I'm looking at who I'd maybe open up the floor to you guys to maybe expand on. Ailsa McDonald, really great Canadian. She was on the podium of Western States last year and then intentionally didn't come back this year in order just to focus on UTMB. Always flies under the radar. Leah Yingling, on the subject of consistency, always strong. And a great Italian runner, Martina Valmasoy. I think she's got a good chance. She had a great race at Worlds too.
Yeah, she's made for these type of efforts, I think.
TDS champ too.
Yeah, TDS champ last year, 4th at Worlds this year. Very excited for Martina, and I think she's going to do well. Mm-hmm.
Also, Priscilla Forgey, somebody I forgot about.
She's in CCC, right? Isn't she?
Oh, yeah. Is
she's
she in the CCC?
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited for her about CCC. Forgot to mention her earlier.
Yeah.
Just remembered.
Yeah, she's really burst onto the scene.
Priscilla's in 10th.
Cool. All right, so let's do quick updates and then we can wrap
for the
things
women.
up. Cool. So let's do the women first over the top of that first climb. Again, we went through the top 10 men. So doing the top 10 women here, and then we'll recap the top 10 men through the Refuge Bertone, and then we can wrap up here. So top 10 women. This is 10Ks into today's CCC. Emily Forsberg, the all-time great, leading the women's race, followed by fellow Scandinavian Ingvild Kaspersen, then Huha Tai in third, Ida Nilsson in fourth. So we've got 4 Scandinavians in the top, 3 Scandinavians in the top 4. Then we've got Emily Hawgood, Hannah Allgood, Helen Mino Faulkner, Addie Bracey, Audrey Tanguay, Priscilla Forgey. Those are our top 10.
Not surprised by
so
those.
So cool, yeah.
Yingvild
really
just
awesome.
ran like a 2:38 low marathon too, like a month ago.
Wow.
She's got some leg speed.
So we've got at least the top 8 men now through. The top 8 men are through the Bertone here. So let's just do that real quick. So now we have Shenji Shen taking the lead from early leader Seth Ruling. Again, they're all very close together, if not together through the Bertone here. So Shenji Shen is our leader now, followed by fellow Chinese athlete Hu Ho Zhang. Third place, Luke Grenfell-Shaw from Great Britain. Seth Ruling running in fourth. Andreas Reiterer in fifth. Thibaut Baronian in sixth. Dakota Jones in seventh. And Simon Goslin in eighth.
So it's going to be a fun day.
Simon Goslin is the coach of Team Cedars Matrix, and he also coaches Remy Bonnet. So
oh, wow.
He's not only a great athlete, but a very good coach.
Wow, cool. Thanks for that insight. Any closing remarks from our panel here today? Maybe you're going out to crew, Helen.
Yes.
So maybe tell us what you guys have planned for the next 24 plus hours of ultra marathon spectating.
Ultra marathon spectating, pretty much. Yeah, we're cheering. We're going to Triant, catching some of the CC folks coming back in, and pretty much just ongoing cheering. If anyone sees us, me or EmKay out there, please say hi. Especially if you're liking the Sub Hub. That kept my spirits alive while I was walking it in.
Subscribe to the Sub Hub.
Subscribe
podcast.
to the Sub Hub.
Yeah, we'll take our mini mics out.
Yep.
For me, I got a few Nike meetings. Some of the global running managers are coming over to Chamonix, so it's a good chance to show them around. And Nike hasn't really gone big on trail running, but things are changing, and I'm super excited about it, because if a company like Nike moves, it means that we're achieving a big status.
Yes.
In the panorama of different sports. So I got a few Nike meetings, and then
do your best, Francesco, on behalf of the entire sport to really seduce and romance the head marketing executives from Nike to make
Nike
sure that
will
they
be
are
able
invested
to
in trail
at least,
running.
Establish a proper team, which is my biggest hope, actually.
Yeah.
And then, I'm going to say hi and good luck to a few friends, including my buddies from Versatility. That is also the official training partner.
Moises is
UTMB.
running tonight.
Yeah, Moy is running UTMB. And then I'll be out there on the course for as long as I can stay awake and cheer all the runners.
It's truly the best week, the best weekend of the year. And this is sort of the crescendo of everything. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on the show. Before we wrap things up, just to our viewing audience, make sure you go get your fantasy picks in. The final race, UTMB, the picks are still open, so make sure you go pick 10 deep there. We've got great prize packages on offer for the top 3 predictors, a head-to-toe kit from Hoka, and a Zephyr Trail running pack from Camelback, fantasy.freetrail.com. Make sure you go get your picks in now, because they will close right at 6 p.m. when UTMB starts. Of course, a big thank you to our sponsors, Hoka and Camelback, for making our coverage possible throughout race week. We've got some Bondis and Stinsons behind our panel here. And like I said, you can have a chance to win a lot of great Hoka products if you do play fantasy tonight. And we had such a good time at the Hoka party last night. Best party. I've been coming to UTMB for 10 years. That was the best party at UTMB that I've ever been to. Big thanks to Camelback too. They make great products. They invented the whole hydration pack thing, and they're doing a lot to invest in our sport too. And we had a fun time at their event with their panel and their open bar last night too. So thanks to Camelback and Hoka for their support. We'll be back tomorrow for like an instant reaction when the men's and women's champions come back here into town in Chamonix for UTMB. We'll do like a live reaction show from both CCC and UTMB. We appreciate everybody for following along all week. For EmKay Sullivan, Dani Moreno, Francesco Puppi, I'm Dylan Bowman. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye.